All right, hi everybody. We are the Eastern Group 2, which is Edwina, Jalen, Katie, and myself, Olivia. And we are going to be talking about a study. The original study was decreasing excessive media usage while increasing physical activity. And this was written by Karen and David Lauren in 2008. This was a single subject research design that focused on a 14-year-old female client. The purpose of this study was to decrease social media while increasing physical activity, losing weight, and her doctors hoped that this would eliminate some reported unhappiness due to her boredom. The goal of this study was to increase miles walked throughout the phases, which would eventually lead to a healthier lifestyle. The machine used was a Bowflex tread climber. The target behavior was walking on a treadmill, which was measured in miles. The IOA and treatment integrity were calculated and overviewed with the client recording all data. The parent monitored all the data collection to ensure that the client was being accurate. A research assistant was also implemented. She ensured accurate data collection as well. She maintained contact a minimum of 3 times a week. She requested all data collected via email from the client that had been monitored by the parent. So this is a great way to ensure that IOA matched up. For this study was a changing criterion design. The method. So for the baseline, client was required to record all media usage and all exercise, but there were no contingencies in place. So she could use as much or as little social media and as much or as little exercise. For phase 1, she was to walk a mile in order to earn 1 hour of social media. This meant that any extra miles she earned over 1 would gain her an extra hour. So if she walked 2 miles, she would get 2 hours. If she walked 3 miles, she'd get 3 hours. For phase 2, it changed up a little bit. She was to walk 1.5 miles before she could earn an hour and a half of social media. Again, this is a little bit different because for this one, she had to walk an extra 1/2 mile in order to earn a half hour of social media. Again, this is social media access contingent upon exercise. Results for the client in this original study, her baseline was 0. She actually said that exercise was aversive to her. Phase 2, she ended up averaging about 1 mile a day, pretty good from baseline, which was 0. And phase 2, she averaged about 1.81 miles a day, which is, again, very good compared to her baseline of 0. Some key notes throughout the study that I thought were important to include: speed consistently increased during phase 1, but phase 2, she kind of leveled out on how fast she was walking. All data showed that there was a steady decline in internet usage overall. The researchers did a couple checkups. So at 5 weeks, she was still averaging 1.5 miles a day, which is great. I think that shows that this process really worked for her. And then 1 year post this research, she was still exercising 5 days a week with less than an hour of social media. And I think that's really great. It definitely worked for her. And then here are the references. Give me just a second. Okay, and I will pass it on to Edwina, who's going to review some of the related literature.
I had a real difficult time actually finding related literature on this article. There was one that I actually thought was interesting. It was an article that was passed on to me by one of my group members. It's called Increasing Physical Activity Through Self-Monitoring, Goal Setting, and Feedback. And it was an article that I found very interesting, written by Matthew P. Norman at the University of the Pacific in Stockton, California. The article used a multiple baseline design consisting of healthy, non-obese adults who exercise regularly or almost regularly. Participants were 3 males and 1 female, and the purpose was to increase physical activity or to lose weight or maintain your current weight. And here we were looking at the experimenters were looking at the relationship of the use of self-monitoring, goal setting, and feedback to increase weight loss. And material used for this study was a new Lifestyle 200 pedometer, which was used to track the participants' daily steps. And for methods and procedure, the target behavior was to increase daily physical activity. For this study, the operational definition for what a step is any activity that results in a count being recorded by the pedometer. And for data collection, daily count was read from the pedometer and was recorded and emailed to the experimenter. And what the experimenter would do is when the participants would email him the results, he would look at their results and actually offer feedback. So for baseline, body weight was measured for all 4 participants, and the pedometer was maxed so the participants could not see how many steps they had taken at the end of the day. In the intervention phase, body weight was checked only twice in the intervention phase. And then the participants wore the pedometers and they were not unmasked. So they could actually see throughout the day how many steps they had taken at the end of the day. And then they would report the totals to the experimenter via email, and the experimenter would respond back by giving feedback on their results at the end of the day. And feedback included either written or verbal praise, like, good job, keep going. And also graphic feedback was also implemented, which was actually a graph that was tracked daily, which would show the participant progress towards their goals. And for reliability checks, at the end of the day, the experimenter would look at what the participants reported and what was actually submitted on the memory of the pedometer. And at the end results, again, they were looking at how does self-monitoring feedback and also praise, what is the relationship with that and actually losing weight. And the end result was no weight was actually lost by any of the participants, but an ABA treatment design was implemented in which when praise was implemented and feedback was implemented, the participants actually increased, their steps. But when praise and feedback was removed, and the participants had a lower amount of steps per day. And it was a really interesting, article because it kind of looks at how, I can, apply it to my daily, use. When we started this project, one of the biggest things is I'm battling type 2 diabetes, and my doctor, and I'm on insulin, and my doctor has, we talked about losing weight. And for me, when my husband tells me, oh, it looks like, you're losing weight, that just increases my motivation to go to the gym. But if I don't hear it, or if he says, oh, it looks like you're gaining weight, and I lose my motivation. So it's really interesting article. I mean, it's something that we go through every day. So I'm going to pass it on to the next person.
I'm Katie. I'll be going over the methods that we use in our replication. We made a few modifications to our study. We used different treadmills as we didn't have access to the exact treadmill that they used in the study. We used a website for our body mass index calculation. And we shortened all phases so that we could develop our thing in audit for the assignment. The participants were 5 adult female graduate students. We took data in the home and Zen setting, depending on treadmill availability. And the materials that we use for treadmills are smartphones, scales, and computers. The treadmill obviously records the exercise behavior use our smartphones to take pictures and to screenshot our social media use. So, to determine weight, which was translated into body mass index on the computer using the website. We had two behavioral definitions in this replication. We have exercise behavior, which was defined as walking at least 1 mile on the treadmill at a specific pace. We didn't have any sort of weight that we were driving to. So it was all determined by the participants. Then we had our social media use behavior. This is defined as using social media applications and websites for non-school or non-work purposes. We collected data on the exercise behavior and on the social media behavior, as well as weight and body mass index. We collected our exercise and social media use behavior daily, and we collected our weight and body mass index approximately every 2 days. We also used a changing criteria design. Our baseline, we put data on our behavior, so the exercise behavior, the social media use behavior, or body mass index. This phase lasted as long as was needed to get a stable trend, and there was no limit on social media use at this time. We then moved into phase 1, where our social media use was now contingent upon our exercise behavior. We had to have a mile of exercise to earn an hour of social media use. We also could earn more if we walked more. Since that was later, we moved on to phase 2. And social media use was contingent upon our exercise behavior. We upped the exercise requirement from 1 mile to 1.5 miles. And 1.5 miles of exercise could earn 1.5 hours of social media. And again, it was if the exercise above and beyond, we could earn even more. Human integrity was maintained by staying in fairly constant contact via our text group. So we were constantly discussing our behavioral definitions and making sure we were taking data the same way and comparing how we were doing things, just make sure we were all on the same page. Similarly, we took our IOA data, we took pictures of our treadmill screens so we could compare. We also screenshotted phone usage statistics so we could determine what exactly we used in a 24-hour period. So we could determine who used social media, what applications used social media, and we sent our data randomly across all different phases. We got 25%. And that is all the method data, and I will pass it back to Olivia.
Okay, so we're going to go over all of our graphs and data individually before we move on with our presentation. And I have mine printed, but I think it's going to be a little bit easier for you to see if I screenshot again. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up, and I can walk you through my averages and my ranges for all the data. So overall miles walked. As you can see in my baseline, I was right around a mile-ish. More specifically, here are my actual averages. I was just below a mile for baseline, from 0.76 to 1.01. Intervention, this is when we were supposed to be walking at least a mile in order to earn an hour. I went anywhere from a mile to 2 miles with an average of 1.59. Intervention phase 2, as you can see, I spiked up a little bit. My average was 0.125. A little bit. You can see social media usage. During baseline, it was pretty excessive, closer to 90 minutes with an average of 76.3. Intervention, I stuck with the contingency plan. I walked a mile. I earned an hour. I didn't falter there during intervention phase 1. Phase 2, I actually decreased, so that's not bad, but I could have had more access because I did end up going up to 2 miles at one point, but my average ended up being 49.2, so I definitely decreased on my social media usage. And then my BMI, it looks kind of crazy, but it ranged from 25.92 to 25.3, so it did go down just a little bit, nothing too crazy. My results weren't as close to the original study, with a bunch of confounding factors there. But with that, I will stop sharing my screen and I will pass it back to Edwina, and she can share a little bit about her graphs for this project.
Okay. For my graphs, on our baseline, actually, for miles walked, that's to say I was less than a quarter of a mile. Embarrassing, but I mean, with being in grad school, I don't know how many of us actually get that much exercise in. So I can blame it on grad school. And actually, for my intervention phase 1, I think all of us were under a lot of pressure because of the time constraint that we had to complete this. So of my intervention phase 1, I actually averaged 1.7 miles. And I live very close to Wegmans, and so I would just use that, mostly to go to Wegmans and grab a fruit or a shake or something like that. So I averaged on my intervention phase 1, 1.75 miles. And then intervention phase 2, my average was 2.6 miles. And that's because, for me, like I said, when we started this project, it was for me to actually lose weight because I've been placed on insulin, so it was very important for me to actually to lose the weight. Also, social media usage for me actually was the opposite for me, because for my baseline, and I was really surprised because I don't think I use that much social media, but I averaged for baseline 73 minutes for that, and that was a shock to me. And then for intervention phase 1, I averaged at 67 hours, and then for intervention phase 2, my social media usage dropped significantly because I'm taking 3 classes, so if I have tests and exams to take, I am not going on Facebook. Like Facebook, I communicate a lot with family members international, so I use an app called WhatsApp where we send pictures to each other, we video chat, and so for that second week, it was just 58 minutes. My social media usage actually dropped, significantly. For my BMI, I'm very embarrassed because I looked at, the the BMI averages for others in the group, and I was at 33.3, which was about 187, I believe, pounds. And then it really did not go down as much. And the reason, and I actually had the opportunity to understand that insulin actually makes you gain weight. So I was exercising a lot, doing a lot more exercising, but my BMI really did not drop significantly at all. So these are, I'm not going to give the numbers, but these are my these are my graphs here for, I don't know if you can see it, for total miles walked, for social media usage, and then for my total body mass index, which it did drop a little in phase 2, but not what I expected because of the effort I thought I placed in. So I am going to pass it on to the next person.
I will bring up my graph. My touch screen is going a little crazy. I apologize. All right, so this is my graph on my exercise behavior. You can see my baseline was a wonderful 0. Exercise much. I don't care for the treadmill. And the funny thing was, I was considering getting a treadmill. That's a good strategy on my part. So my range was 0 for baseline. My average was also 0 for baseline. When I'm looking at when I moved on to treatment phase 1, I did go to the gym and I did get on a treadmill. Amazingly, but I only averaged 0.23 miles in phase 1. And quickly, the response effort of going to the gym made my exercise behavior go down to 0 again. So it really did not work well for me. The social media was not strong enough. On to my next graph. All right, so there's my social media use. It is embarrassingly high, kind of varied. Baseline was, the average was only 61, which was a pleasant surprise actually. But it was a range of between 53 to 92 minutes per day on social media. During the treatment phase, I did earn some social media use. So I varied between 0 to 52 minutes with an average of 10 minutes. Then on social media, my first treatment phase. And then when I moved into treatment phase 2, it went down to 0 because, of course, I did not do any exercising, so I did not earn any social media time. I did find this to be really quite refreshing and relaxing. It was nice to not be on social media all the time. So I found it to be helpful in that respect. All right, and here's all right, my body mass index graph apparently went missing. So let me go back. Let me unshare my screen. All right. All right, so that one just isn't showing up. Let me see if I can't fix this really quickly. I apparently inserted the same picture twice because there's the right graph. Can everybody see it? Here. All right. No, I am not. Okay, let me go back to screen share. I apologize for this lovely technological difficulty. And here we go. There's my body mass index. It's lovely. It actually decreased. It's surprising with how little exercise I engaged in. So my average range for body mass index was a whopping 43.6 to 44.1 with an average of 43.9. In case you guys don't know, that is morbidly obese. Kind of fun there. During treatment phase 1, I did decrease to a range of 43 to 43.5 with an average of 43.3. And in treatment phase 2, I ended up only with one data point, which was it went up again to 43.4, which is expected because I did not do any exercising. So that was my data. It wasn't as effective for me, but I found it to be a fun replication to participate in. Then I will pass it on next to Katie for her data.
Okay. So, all right. Okay, so I'm going to start with the exercise. You can see that mine started off as 0. I wasn't super motivated to exercise at all. And then I decided that I was going to start exercising, and it jumped way up to in phase 1, I averaged about 1.2 miles. And then in phase 2, I averaged about 1 mile. But I did actually, after I've been continuing to exercise, so that's been going good for me. And then my social media usage, baseline was about 40.8. And then in phase 1 was an average about 50.8. And then in phase 2 was about 60 minutes. So I really didn't decrease my social media usage at all. On my phone quite a bit. And my BMI, that actually went down. It's because I actually continued to do exercise. The baseline was an average about 29. In phase 1, went down to about 28.8, and then in phase 2 is about 28.7. And like I said, I found it difficult to not use my phone as much. Wasn't the social media or the exercise was not enough motivation to exercise anymore, or to not use the social media. I'm sorry. All right.
My name's Jalen, and I'm going to go over my graphs. So this is my graph for the overall miles walked. During baseline, I had a range of 0.78 miles to 3.98 miles. It started off very low, and as I was tracking it, I kind of increased it a little bit and, you know, stayed. Usually I took my dog on a walk, so that's why it was around that average. The average was 2.54 miles. Then whenever I began phase 1, I started going to the gym, and I increased it even more. I think that this had more to do with going to the gym and being at the gym and doing something productive at the gym. I went with my husband, and so I stayed as long as he did, and this is what I got accomplished in that time. So I made sure to hit the goal that we had for the criteria, but I did go over it. And same thing with phase 2. I hit the goal for 1.5 miles walked, but I did go over it as well, even though it was less than intervention phase 1. And then my social media usage, it stayed pretty on trend. I averaged around 63 to 115 minutes on social media with an average of 89.5. Even though they went up and down, they did stay pretty on trend. And then my BMI baseline was the exact same. And in phase 1, it decreased, and it increased a little bit in phase 2, probably because my exercise decreased, but the range was 32.3 to 33.4, and my average was about 33.025 for my BMI. I'm going to pass it back to Katie, and she's going to discuss the limitations.
So I think the biggest limitation that we had was the amount of time we had for the study.
the original was about 7 weeks long, and we had about 3 weeks, so we had to pack it down. Another was the IOA. In the original study, the girl had her mother and another research assistant to track her data. And like Katie had said, that one of the solutions that we had was to take pictures, screenshots of on the treadmill and our social media usage on the phone. Another limitation was gaining access to the equipment that that means going to the gym, and maybe not all of us had access, but we had to make it happen. And the BMI tracker, we used a different sort of thing. And I think another thing was the motivation, or the social media was not enough reinforcement to walk more. And I think that is about it. So I'll take it over.
In conclusion, although the original study's participant had success increasing her physical activity while decreasing her amount of time on the internet, our group had less maintained success. As Katie was saying, this lack of success could be due to the fact that the social media was not a strong enough reinforcer to maintain exercising behavior. We also had to make many modifications, such as using alternative exercise machines. This modification could have also impacted the motivation to exercise in a negative manner. Lastly, the original study had in-person accountability that would have motivated the participant to exercise more frequently. As an online distance group, we kept in contact, but our distance motivation did not prove to be as effective as in-person motivation and accountability. Overall, this study gave our group an opportunity to replicate a single subject research design, and through this replication, we gained experience taking baseline and treatment data, graphing the data, and determining IOA. With this experience, we will be better prepared to collect, graph, and analyze data effectively in the future. Thank you so much for listening and attending our group project presentation.